Hi, guys. Welcome to the second episode of the Fireside of Normal podcast. My name is Stacy Farr, the creator and the host. This week, we're going to be talking again about Queen Charlotte because I love it and there's more to say. Last week, we talked about the things I loved, the things I appreciated. I celebrated Queen Charlotte. It was everything. It was everything. And I went into it thinking, I don't know how this is going to compare to Bridgerton. I loved it. The costumes were amazing. The sets were incredible. The acting, they just, they can call it a day. I want to talk about, we're going to still stick with for a little bit, the things I loved because I didn't get to squeeze it all in last week. But listen, I don't know who the lighting and the camera people were, but they deserve awards and cookies because skin was on point. The young lady Danbury, her skin looked like chocolate silk. Man, she was giving camera. And her teeth are so beautiful. I need to figure out her dental care routine. Her smile, and then the skin and the makeup was whoever did the y'all T-clap. Because y'all murdered it. The young queen, murder. The faces were facing. Their skin and their makeup was so flawless. Sometimes I had to remember, they're wearing makeup. Because I don't look like that in the morning when I wake up. And then I had to remember they are actually wearing makeup, but they were seamless with that skin and that makeup and the hair. Man, listen, thank you. Whoever you are, thank you. And I hope you win many, many awards and several accolades. That's all I got. Okay, the other things I appreciated, again, the diversity, not just in color, but size. It was so encouraging to see gorgeous plus size women as part of the ton. And even the regular servants were a variety of sizes. That was so encouraging to me. Some of the things that I found challenging, we're going to jump into next. The first thing I thought of when it came to, I had a hard time with that, is how much power the ton had. But not even just the ton. The queen mom, the fact that she could bestow titles or take them away. These are people. They're not pawns in a chess game. And that they called it the great experiment. You're experimenting at the expense of people that have whole families and whole lives. And now you're pulling them into your madness, and they're basically pawns, and you are entertained, but you also want to see if it's going to work. Because you have a black queen, quick, grab some minority people and throw them in the mix. Okay, here, we'll give you a title and you can play with us, but you really can't be a part of us. And I know it was like that back then, which makes it even harder, that someone would have that much power over a whole group of people and then play with it as if they were lives that had no consequence. That was a bitter pill to swallow. It's even challenging because sometimes I feel like we're still in that, which is not fun. That was hard. And I felt so bad for Lady Danbury when her husband died and the whole ton, the brown and black people popped up at her door. And I'm sure they were concerned for her and, sorrows, felicitations, whatever. But they were more worried. Okay, so where does this leave us? Because they don't know. Are we going to keep our titles? Do we not keep our titles? Will our titles be passed on to our children if our husband dies? Because remember, Lord and Lady Danbury, the Lord part is dead, but she has children. So will my son get to be the next Lord Danbury, or are we going back to being quote unquote commoners? This was a precedent. They didn't know. And she's grieving, trying to figure things out. But not only do you have to figure out your life, now you have the weight of all of these people that you have to navigate these waters for, it was a lot. No wonder she broke down and she started crying. Poor thing. But I appreciate that she got whiskey out of a skirt. That's why you have skirts with pockets, y'all, to have all kinds of stuff and be ready for any situation. But it was challenging for me because I thought, you're making these people pawns. And that she had to basically beg for the title for her son and barter. That was hard to watch. I'm not going to lie, it was hard. It is challenging being a brown or black person. We're just going to keep it real. It's challenging still, maybe not to the degree that it was then, but it is still challenging. And I feel like sometimes the powers that be still treat us like pawns instead of humans with full lives. Yeah, we're just going to leave it at that. The other thing I'm salty about, and this part is for real salt, Lady Danbury deserved better. I'm just going to say that. After her husband died and they celebrated, because it was a celebration, he was kind of mourning, but I celebrated with her. I was like, woohoo. But Mr. Man, Bridgerton, I'm looking at you. He did her dirty. And my friend played devil's advocate. I'm going to tell you my thoughts and then tell you hers, and we're going to discuss. She was in a state of grief. Even though she didn't like her husband, she said it earlier, she was groomed for him since the age of 3 to marry this one man. She didn't know the ways of the world. She didn't have experience with anybody else. She wasn't some lady of the night. She had been married young, and she was, for all intents and purposes, not really wise to the ways of the world. So that Mr. Man came along in her grief and in her weakness and took advantage of her, I feel, bettered her, and then praised your daughter out to be like, oh yeah, now I have to go back to my regularly scheduled program. Sir, you could have saved your dusty self over there. My friend played devil's advocate. This was her thought. She said, well, she did get something out of it. Remember when she told the queen that, or whoever, her garden bloomed, Violet. She told Violet her garden bloomed after her husband died. She was like, so she got that. I'm like, really? That's what we're doing? Okay, whatever. And my friend said, well, what do you think? What did she think was going to happen? That's the thing. I don't think she knew because she never had this experience. She only ever knew her husband. She was basically bartered, and then that was it. No other experience. That made me mad. Not just because he did her dirty, but because I've seen this trend over the last couple of years, and maybe I'm just more aware of it as I get older. But in several shows, in movies, even in books, how come the brown and black women, I'm just going to keep it real, it's okay for you to bed them but not wed them? I don't love that. Because if you want any part of me, then you should want all of me. Or you don't want, what do they say? You want our rhythm but not our blues. And that frustrates me. Especially I've noticed with brown, dark brown, and dark black skinned girls. You usually can get a pass, we're just going to keep it 100, with light skin or biracial women. But when it's dark brown and black girls, no ma'am. And that just frustrates me because it reinforces this narrative that we're not as good or not good enough. If you want our bodies, then you should want our souls. I.e., don't just sleep with us, marry us. You know what I mean? That frustrates me because I've watched a couple of things recently, and my thought was, how fascinating. So let's unpack that. Why do these shows and movies keep perpetuating that narrative. It's harmful, number one. Two, as a Black woman, it's already a struggle. You're not helping the cause. And three, why not show how amazing we are, how much we deserve? Let us be the ultimate object of desire. I still think about Sleepy Hollow. I love that show because Abby had the whole fan family. She had Ichabod, she had Chan, she had the Hispanic detective, then she had the Black guy. Like, it was the whole family represented. And she was the object of desire. She wasn't the afterthought or the side person or the under the covers. No, she was the prize with all of these men. Even with Ichabod being married, well, Katrina, that was a whole nother story. Anyways, she was the main character with all of these supporting roles in all the races. Honestly, you had white, you had Black, you had Hispanic, you had Asian. It was a whole family. And I love that until they killed her off. And that was a whole nother story. Don't even get me started. I'm still salty about that. Still salty. I love Sleepy Hollow. And Ick Abby, and the chemistry, salty. Fox, I'm looking at you. Anyways, but other narratives are not that. Mostly it's, well, you can be the mistress, or you can be the side chick, or you can be my girlfriend, but when I have to get serious and own a business or my father's approval or inherit the company or fill in the blanks, you choose someone that looks like you. That's not cute. It's not. And it's hurtful. I want someone to look like me and be the main character, to be the object of desire, the affection, the attention, the pursuit. That's why I loved season 2 in Bridgerton. You had beautiful dark skin. And man, they were the diamonds. 2 of them for the price of 1 come through. And they proved it 10 times over. They were absolutely gorgeous. And that Anthony pursued them with everything he had. Yes, his motives weren't so great. But at the end, he married. And it was all good in the hood. And I loved it. That is what we need more of. Not this dang on narrative that, well, they're good enough to get next to, but not be with for life. We need to scratch that all out of the history books. Well, we can't really erase history, but we don't want to make it a standard. We don't want to make it a norm. We don't want to make it commonplace anymore. It's 2023. We're going to do better. That's all I got on that. Okay. The other thing I had a hard time with, and I don't even really think it was a hard time. I just think, Lord Jesus, Joseph, and Mary, I am so grateful I was born in this time frame instead of the other one. I felt so bad for the servants. And Brimsley, it made me so sad when she was like, Brimsley, did you ever marry? Did you ever have someone? He was like, no. And I know in his mind, he was like, girl, when would I have a time? I am serving the queen. I am serving the crown. I don't basically have a life. You are my life. And that's sad because I don't think I realized, or maybe I do. Sometimes it's easier to pretend that things were better back then, but they weren't. It just makes me incredibly sad because how could you have a life? How could you have a husband or a wife or children? You serve the crown. And at their whim, day or night, you had to be available. You don't really sleep. You saw those scenes where they were kind of sleeping here and sleeping there and really not resting, but their eyes are closed. And I thought, dang, gum. I kind of equated to when I was taking care of someone that was dying. You really don't sleep. You rest, but not really. You have your eyes closed, but you're always on alert to the slightest move, the smallest noise. You're ready to hop up and do whatever you need to do. That's the life of a servant. And it just made me sad that they don't have a life. I don't know if they chose that life, if they were volunteered or voluntold, if they were born into it. I don't know how they came to be, but it made me really sad for them. This is all you're going to know. You get abuse heaped on you, you get mistreated, you get ignored, you're invisible until you're needed. And then you're just a tool for use. That's incredibly disheartening. It's sometimes dehumanizing. These were people. Yeah, that made me sad. Poor Brimsley. Yeah, I'm going to leave that at that. And even the ladies of the Ten, the ladies behind the queen that always are holding her dogs, did they get a say in that? Or were they just voluntold, now you're going to be on the queen's court? Like Lady Danbury was. She was minding her business, and next thing you know, okay, now we're her trusted. And it worked out for her, but how many other people did it not work out for? I even felt bad for the king's man when he tried to go in there and save the king from those horrific treatments. He got beat up and thrown out, and they said, you forget your station or your place. His place is serving the king, which is what he was trying to do and protect him. That was a whole nother story. But it made me sad when I thought about it. For the most part, I love Queen Charlotte. It's a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. And again, I'm so glad I was not born back in the day. I'd be in trouble if I wasn't part of the Ton. I probably would still be in trouble if I was in the Ton. I'd be one of those outspoken ones. It reminds me of when they were at the ball and God love Violet. Hey, Lady Danbury. And she's all waving and all loud. That would be me. Just awkward. Oh, it's so unfortunate. It would be awkward. That would be me. And how her mom was mortified. But then she was like, wait, how do you know her? And she's looking at her daughter and then looking at her husband. He's like, oh, look, I'm going to go over here. That made me smile because that would be me doing some unladylike or awkward nerdy thing. I don't know. Yeah. Yep, that would be me. It just made me laugh. I appreciate her, Lady Danbury, that is, back on topic. I appreciate Lady Danbury's maid or lady in waiting or whatever you want to call it. The fact that she celebrated with her, and even when she just prattled on and on about her going on a walk and being alone and getting air, and then Lady Danbury finally is over it. Shut up. It didn't hurt her heart. I think if anything, she was taken aback and kind of offended, like, did she just tell me to shut up? But then she got over it and went about her merry way. That made me smile. And I love how the queen asked Brimsley when she wants the truth, because he knows her like no other. When she kept trying to convince him, or herself maybe, I think maybe more herself, that she was a good mother, and he kept insisting, you were a great queen. Period. You were a great queen. Not mother, queen. And she was like, go stand over there and don't even look at me. He's like, okay, but you are still a great queen and not a great mother. And she knew it, and she tried to change course. I appreciate that they can be honest. Even when the king was with his man and they were talking, and he was talking about Charlotte's impertinence, and she ignored him. And what did she call the bunny? The deformed, or the dog was a deformed bunny, and how he thought that was brilliant. And she was like, we're not suited. Or he said, we're not suited. That his manservant was, or you're the perfect match. And then he thought about it. You're right. I need to be closer to her. Let's go. It's a delicate balance and a delicate dance. And they portrayed it beautifully. The complication between servant and quote unquote master. I like that. That was, it was always fun to watch. And even Brimsley, he just makes me smile. When they were doing the decorations, he's like, I can't, I'm out. Basically, you're doing too much. And he just walked away. That made me laugh. I appreciate how we are now showing the struggle that women have when their husbands have mental illnesses. I think we do a great job of showing and displaying women with mental illnesses and challenges, and even in their marriages sometimes, but we don't highlight or spotlight men and the weight it has on the women, especially in high positions. The queen is the highest position. How she has to hold the country down, hold the family down, hold her husband down, and keep herself together. That's a lot. And she did it with grace and with fierceness. She was crushing people, and I love it. But I appreciate the struggle because she was lonely. She couldn't really confide in that many people. She could Lady Danbury, but only to a degree, because you have to preserve the crown and protect the crown. You can't really talk about madness, and they didn't even know what madness was. You saw it by those horrific. I don't know if I can watch one more time through because it broke my heart. Every time the king had to go through those treatments. And Corey is just masterful portraying the struggle of mental illness back in a time when we didn't know that's what it was. And the treatments were barbaric. Oh, I don't know if I can watch again because it broke my heart the first time and I don't want to cry. So, Corey, I hope you win many, many awards. You will be around for a long, long time. But it broke your heart to see her struggle and the weight that almost crushed her until she literally straightened up and then soldiered on. But you thought, dang, that's a lot. For a 17-year-old, remember she was 10 and 7. It wasn't like she was a older woman that had had so many years of getting or finding herself. She was 17. What 17-year-old do you know right now that could handle that? Wait a minute, heck. What 30-year-old, what 40-year-old do you know that could handle that? It takes a very strong person. But I appreciate that she also allowed herself to be a little bit weak. And then she cowboyed up and jumped back in it. Same thing with Lady Danbury, that she had a moment and then she dried her tears, cowboyed up, and jumped back in the fray. That's a lot. And even though she was trifling, George's mom, she had to endure some trauma as well. Be at the mercy of her dead husband's cruel father. That's a lot. And she had bruises to tell the story, but she had to stay and get tough. And how she reminded Lady Danbury, don't ever let them see you weak. Don't ever let them see you break. Basically, be a diamond that's unbreakable. These women, I think back in the day, were stronger than we give them credit for. So many of these period pieces make it seem as if they're delicate and they're fragile and they have these lives of ease and leisure. It was a struggle. And you had to play chess when others were playing checkers if you wanted to survive or be treated well, or even, dare you say, hopefully thrive. Kind of like now, but not to such an extreme degree. Women have to be masterful at controlling their own lives. You can't leave things up to the whims of men or others, even women. You have to have a strong sense of self and know who you are and what you want, and be able to say yes or no and then fight for what you want. We are soft. We are delicate. I always think about steel magnolias. That is the apt description, because we are flowers and fragile, but we can be gangsters and ruthless and diamonds that cut instead of are cut. But we have to have a balance. I don't want to be so hard that I don't break. I don't want to be so cold that I don't feel. I don't want to be so ruthless that I don't care. Balance. I think it's all about balance. And Queen Charlotte showed that beautifully. You can be strong. You can be hard. You can be fierce. You can be tough. But you can also be vulnerable. You can also be weak. You can also be fragile. You can also be delicate. You can also be vulnerable. Balance. Not just in the women, but in the men. That George was strong enough to be weak. That he was brave enough to be vulnerable. I appreciate that. T-clap, Shonda. I'm still trying to figure out how I can be in season 3 as an extra. If anybody is in with Shonda Land, please give me a recommendation, because I want to wear a big wig and a fat dress and glide and walk and be on the peripheral taking it all in. Again, Queen Charlotte is everything. I think I'm going to have to just be brave and have lots of chocolate and then watch it one more time. I watched things the first time through just to take it all in. The second time, I looked for things I missed. And I know there's a ton that I missed. My friend who gives me commentary has already, she's on, what is it, episode 4 of Queen Charlotte. And she just finished watching it last week. She's deranged, but whatever. I think I'm going to watch it one more time through. I'm just going to have Kleenex, chocolate, a warm fluffy blanket. Yeah, and my bear Alexander. I don't have a boo. I have a bear. He's a good bear. But I think I'm going to have to do it, watch it one more time, just to see the things I missed and then enjoy the things that I loved about it, which was more than I didn't like. Queen Charlotte, you definitely have to watch it. Probably twice. It's only 6 episodes. It's not as if it's 22 episodes in 15 seasons, like the show that I love a lot, which we'll probably discuss very, very soon. That is all I have. Thank you so much for sticking with me as I ramble and rant and talk about Queen Charlotte, all the things that I absolutely love and adored, some of the things I found challenging and hard and was not a big fan of. But again, it was brilliant. It really, really was. Those young kids, to be young and beautiful. Good times. Yeah. That is all I have. Until next time, we will see you back on the far side of normal.